Hey guys, it's Charlene. Thank you for joining me here on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making this adorable card using the brand new Yappy Birthday stamps from Lawn Fawn. These are so cute. You can see all those cute little pups and all of the birthday gear. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my card out in layers. So I'm diving right in here. I'm using some Memento Tuxedo black ink because that is alcohol marker friendly. So I'm stamping here my base layer of stamps. Essentially, this is everything that's going to be at the forefront. I'm creating a scene here. So in between each layer of stamping, I'm going to go ahead and create masks for the stamps that I've stamped using some masking magic. And then I can cover the stamps and stamp my next layer of stamps. So when you're doing something like this and you want to create a layered stamp scene, just make sure you're thinking in reverse. So whatever your images that are going to be in the forefront, those are the images that you have to stamp first, and then you go backwards. So now I'm going to stamp out the second dog that I want, as well as the dog house. So this will make it so that the dog house sits behind that cute little pile of doggy presents, and so that the dog I'm stamping now has that cute little birthday hat on. Again, just going to stamp out some masks on Masking Magic and trim those out with my scissors and cover up the stamps so I can move on to my next layer. Now for this layer, I'm just stamping some balloons, and these are going to go right on that sweet little puppy's tail there. And then I'm going to go ahead and again make a mask and mask off those balloons. Now the reason I am masking all of these images is because I'm going to use these stencils here to create my background. So this is the Lawn Fawn Slimline Grassy stencil. It's a great stencil. I've come in here with some distress ink. I'm using Mowed Lawn, and I made sure to get the entire area covered before I come in with my darker color, which is Rustic Wilderness. So I'm going to bring that Rustic Wilderness down from the top, and then I'm also going to bring it all the way around on the edges. You can see there, it looks really neat. So the cool thing about this stencil is that you can use it to stencil something and then also to mask the stenciling that you've done. So I just moved the stencil down, masked over where I did the grass stenciling, and now I can bring some tumbled glass distress ink up and over my masked images in order to create a blue sky. I'm also going to be bringing in the Slimline Cloudy Stencils. There's 2 of them in this set, and these are really awesome too. So whenever I'm making clouds, what I like to do is start with the left side of the stencil, and I just gently bring my ink very lightly up and over the top of the stencil. So this is going to create what looks like a shadow behind those clouds. So then I can go on and do the next level of clouds, and I'm going to move the stencil over to the right. I'm coming in again with a really light hand with the tumbled glass and just bringing it up and off of the stencil. You don't need very much ink to get the look that you're going for. Then I can come back in and do one last layer of clouds, and I actually rotated my stencil 180 degrees and used the bottom side up here on the top in order to create that last layer of clouds. Once I have everything down, I can go ahead and take off the stencils and get to the exciting reveal part where I get to pull off all of those masks. So you can see now that the little images are showing up and they look so cool. The little dog, and here we've got that sweet little slice of birthday cake in the doggy dish. These are going to look amazing once they are colored in. Now, you could color before you mask or you can color after. It's just a personal preference. Sometimes I color before I do my masked images, and sometimes I like to do it after. I decided to do it after on this one because I wasn't sure at the time I started stamping everything kind of what color scheme I wanted to use for this cute little Yappy birthday party. I decided to go with primaries, so I'm going to dive in here on the coloring, and you're going to see that I'm using a lot of red, blue, and yellow for coloring everything, but you could do any color scheme you want to for these images. So I'm starting out with the doghouse here. I'm using some R14, R27, and then later for the roof, I'm going to come in with some E57 and E59. Now, if you don't want to watch the coloring, you want to skip forward, I will go ahead and put a timestamp on the video here, letting you know where to skip forward to. For the doggy bowl, I did B12 and B18. And then for the balloons, we've got R14, R27, B12, B18, Y02, Y08, and Y38. I bring that Y38 in a little bit later when I decide that my yellow coloring really needed a darker color included. So you can see I put down my light and then I put down my dark, and then I'm blending in between the two of them. I'm doing a method on a lot of these where I color the darker color onto my glass mat, and then I use the lighter color to pick up some of that darker color, and then I'm able to color it, and it creates a in-between color, a color between, for instance, the B12 and the B18, and it just helps those to blend together better. For the inside there of the little dog house, I'm using some cool grays. I used C3, C5, and C7. And now for the first of the sweet little pups, I am using E51, E53, and E57. Now don't ask me what kind of dogs these are. They're just cute dogs. I have no idea. I just knew that I wanted to do one in some light brown shades, and then the other I was going to do in some warm grays. I thought those would go well together. I did add a little bit in the ears there of pink. I put in some R11, and then for the little snout, I did some W3 and W5. Now for pup number 2, I mentioned these are warm grays. So I've got some W0, W1, W3, W5, and W7. I find that warm grays work really well for animals. It just makes them look a little bit more lifelike. And now you can see I'm coming in and finishing off that doghouse. For the cake, I used some E58, E79, and then some Y08, Y38, and R27 for the candle. And for the presents, I've got a lot going on here. I've got R14, R27, B12, B18, Y08, and Y38. And then on the little bone, I just did some shading with W1 and W3. So you can see I kept the color scheme throughout everything. Even the little banner on the house matches, the balloons, matches the present, matches the dog bowl. You don't have to be as matchy as I was, but I usually like to try and keep things consistent with a theme when I'm going through and coloring my images. I love how this turned out. So cute. Once I was done coloring, I did decide that I wanted to create a few little areas in the grass where you could actually see some grass blades. So I brought back in the Slimline Grassy stencil, put a couple of little pieces of masking tape over on each side of where I want the little spot to stop. And then I just brought in some Rustic Wilderness. So you can see it better because it's the darker color up against the mowed lawn. And it just makes that lawn look like there's a little bit more going on. And it's certainly not necessary, but I thought it would be a nice extra touch on there. For my sentiment, I am going to go ahead and do some heat embossing. I've got a piece of black cardstock here. I've put down some anti-static powder, and then I'm going to be stamping in some VersaFine embossing ink. Just making sure to get some real good coverage on the stamps because I want to make sure that there's a good amount of embossing ink on the cardstock. That helps the embossing powder to stick better to your paper. So pressing down there, making sure I've got some nice even coverage. Now I'm coming in with some Lawn Fawn embossing powder in white, making sure everything looks good, and then I can go ahead and melt it all with my heat gun. I absolutely love the way that white embossing powder looks on black cardstock. And I think it can really help a sentiment stand out on a very colorful card. So I'm doing these here at a little bit of an angle to go with the fun sort of theme that's going on with the card. I do have some small black foam adhesive squares on the backs there of the two strips in order to give them a little bit of dimension. And then I can go ahead and glue the whole card front down to my card base. Now this is an A2 size card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That finishes everything up. I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. Please be sure to like and subscribe so that you'll get notified about future tutorials that are released here on the channel. Have a great day.